Hello there, and welcome to Know Where to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde, and we were going to do a year in review to kind of re-encapsulate what happened in 2024, and there was a lot of good stuff. There were some big wins, but you know what? Time races on, and looking over our shoulders, that may be fun, but there's serious work ahead of us, and it all gets underway very, very soon. So this edition of Know Where to Hide is going to be dedicated to what lies ahead for the Gem State in 2025. You won't want to miss this.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy.
Once again, welcome to Know Where to Hide. It's exciting to have a brand new year ahead of us. It's off to kind of an interesting start, at least nationally and internationally. But here in the Gem State, there are some very big possibilities. And we're going to go over some of the priorities for the legislature, as well as what you can do to be better involved and less of someone just sitting on the sidelines this year. So let's get right to it and see what's ahead for the Gem State in 2025. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Brian Allman at the Gem State Substack. He's an excellent source of information. Brian is really on the ball. And more importantly, I think he provides a very fair and very even-handed way of approaching these issues. They can be kind of hot sometimes, but if you're looking for a really great information source, this is one of the better ones that you're going to find. Brian reminds us the legislature will officially convene at noon on Monday, January 6th. Now, while Idaho's congressional delegation meets in a joint session to certify the 2024 presidential election, state lawmakers here in the Gem State will gather to hear Governor Brad Little's State of the State address. That's where the governor will lay out his legislative priorities, often featuring a major initiative like the launch grant from 2023 or last year's $2 billion schools facility bond proposal. Now, it's interesting if you note, often the governor has some big plans, which should be followed by the question of paid for by whom. And that's going to figure a little bit into what we talk about where some of the priorities need to be for Gem State legislators, as well as you and I as citizens who want to be actively involved in our own governance. Brian from the Gem State Substack says, later in the week, the Idaho Freedom Foundation will be hosting the first of its regular Capital Clarity programs on Thursday, January 9th at noon. This is a wonderful chance to get better informed from some of the people who are movers and shakers. Sometimes they're from within the state of Idaho. In past years, we've had other, dignitaries come from out of state, and sometimes they're elected officials, and sometimes they aren't. You'll learn a ton from watching or participating in the Capital Clarity program. And of course, you're invited to join IFF President Ron Nate and policy analyst Nicholas Kleinworth for Legislature 101. We're going to be talking more about this in just a moment. This will teach you how to engage with the legislative process. Again, that is coming up on Thursday, January 9th. In fact, let's give you some of the specifics. Why would you want to be a part of Legislature 101? Okay, well, let's explain it. Legislature 101 will teach you how to engage with lawmakers as well as how to advocate for freedom. So you'll learn how to read, how to understand bills, how to talk to your lawmakers. Here's just, a friendly hint. You don't have to call up and yell at them. If you can speak with them intelligibly about the process, about what is happening with a given bill, you'll find that they're very helpful in that regard, and they're very grateful to hear from constituents who know what's going on. You'll also learn how to advocate on specific issues, and if you're looking for a better understanding of a given issue, this is a great way to do that. Oh, by the way, Idaho GOP Chair Dorothy Moon will also be doing a guest appearance. That's coming up this Thursday, January 9th, 12 to 1 p.m., so a week from today, at the Lincoln Auditorium at the Idaho State Capitol. Well worth your time. And again, if you want to just be somebody doing cat calls from the sidelines, that's all fine. But if you really want to be involved in the process, this is a really easy way for you to learn how to do it and do it well. Now, having said that, here are some of the top priorities, according to the Idaho Freedom Foundation, that we're going to be focusing on for this legislative session. This is a big one, and it's been back year after year. Pass universal education choice. I think it's becoming clear that this is going to be a real issue, because I'm seeing the opponents of this kind of legislation already stepping up. Oh, they are in a full court press. It's primarily teachers' unions and other proponents of the system who would rather just see, we want the money in the system and no more questions asked. Shut up, they explained. But this is going to be a really serious issue to keep an eye on. Also, we'll talk about ending woke DEI programs in higher education. Now, the State Board of Education is actually, or the State Board of Higher Education has actually chosen to eliminate DEI at the state universities and colleges, but you're already hearing rumblings about, yeah, we'll get rid of it, wink, wink, but we're going to bring it back under a new name or under new management or some other hidden way. For some reason, this Marxist thinking just has to be a part of indoctrinating those young minds. Well, not if the taxpayer dollars are what are funding it. There will be serious effort to repeal the grocery tax. Look, if you're struggling to make ends meet, government needs to do its part and tighten its belt as well. We'll talk about serious property tax relief during this legislative session. Here's a big one that we're going to go into in some detail here in just a moment. Stop the overspending. I was shocked when I read Fred Birnbaum's latest report. Fred is an analyst for the Idaho Freedom Foundation, and his latest report shows you exactly what is going on in terms of how has spending increased over the last 5 fiscal years. It's astonishing. I'll show you in just a moment. Other items that we're going to be addressing in the legislature: blocking welfare for illegal immigrants, rejecting the 22% politician pay hike. We'll actually explain why that needs to be blocked, or rejected rather, and also repealing free health care for able-bodied adults. That one should be self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised how hard some people will fight for it. So let's take a moment to talk about controlling the spending. Fred Birnbaum, in his article at idahofreedom.org, asks, if you want limited government, you got to control the spending. But he gives you some specifics why. This graphic is a little bit hard to see, but it shows Idaho state spending growth, including general and dedicated funds, over the past 5 years. Now, keep in mind, federal dollars are not included in these numbers. So you go from a $5 billion or $5.7 billion budget in fiscal year 2020 to an $8.7 billion budget in fiscal year 2025. I know, a billion here, a billion there. It doesn't really sound like that big of an increase, but it's the part that second little block from the end on the right, the percentage change from 2020 to 2025. How much has it increased? 53%. That's a lot of increase in spending. And here Fred explains why this is such a pivotal time for us. He says, Idaho is at a crossroads. Which fork in the road will the legislature choose? The path to fiscal restraint or the continuation of big spending? One of the reasons, by the way, we oppose the 22% pay raise for legislators is because we believe that accepting such a raise will make it harder for legislators to restrain state spending by not leading by example. So the current, the limited government goal for fiscal year 26 should be holding overall spending flat to the current fiscal year 25. It's that simple. Is it going to be that easy? Well, watch and see. But be sure you tune in Legislature 101. Again, that's Thursday the 9th, 12 to 1 p.m. Or join us in person at the Lincoln Auditorium. This is a great chance to be more involved this year. If you haven't made a resolution, make that your resolution. Be more involved in your own governance. Participate, understand the legislation, and wherever you can, let your influence and your voice be heard on behalf of freedom, on behalf of fiscal responsibility, on behalf of those first principles that made not just America, but made Idaho and the Gem State an exceptional place, a place that people would want to be, where they would vote with their feet in order to be here. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased. The Idaho Press Club are biased. All media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy